Today, more UK legislative bait and switching, sidechains promising financial disruption, and militarized police. Your host is Rick Falkvinger, and this is Liberties Report.
This report is presented by Private Internet Access.
Good evening and welcome to Liberties Report, week 43. It's getting a bit bothering to bring up the UK several weeks in a row, but this time the country presents a textbook example of deceptive legislation that we all need to recognize wherever it appears. So the UK gets to serve as a bad example yet once more. This week, the UK presents legislation that'll introduce a lifetime in jail for a certain type of crime, and just for once, terrorism is not mentioned, at least not directly. Instead, this life in jail mentions computer users. Specifically, the law talks about how
computer users deemed to have damaged national security, human welfare, the economy, or the environment will face a life sentence.
Let's take a look at that text again. This is how the law is going to be sold to the public to justify its existence, and it's already how it's appearing in headlines.
Computer users, damaged national security, will face a life sentence.
However, that's not what the law text says, as we can clearly see. It says much more. If that was how the law is going to be sold, then this is how it's going to be applied.
Computer users, damaged, the economy, will face a life sentence.
And it gets even worse when we read closer.
Computer users deemed to have damaged, the economy, will face a life sentence.
Yes, you heard that absolutely right. This is a law that'll be used to put people in jail for life if they destroy jobs. But destroying jobs is a necessary part of competition and means getting the same output with less resources and effort. The greatest innovators, which cause major disruption and cause great leaps for humanity, they destroy thousands of jobs at a time. If that disruption is caused to friends of politicians or to friends of the establishment, the law will be applied like this. And then there's the deemed part. The people who are going to be targeted by this law don't even have to actually cause disruption. It's enough that somebody feels their industrial status as kings of the hill is threatened to have the law spring into action. Usually, strong entrepreneurs understand the hint here and take their innovation elsewhere. On the other hand, if that disruptive entrepreneur or industrialist is friends with the establishment, it'll be seen as regular competition, just business as usual. This has happened a number of times in this pattern where wildly different things are mixed. National security, human welfare, economy, environment, is where one of them will be used to justify the law and where it will be used for the other things. So a good test in any debate about such laws is that the proponents will usually downplay the other components in public debate. But it would never be used for that purpose. At that point, counter with, then we can safely remove that part from the text of the proposed law. And at that point in turn, they'll do a 180-degree spin, and insist that the part that would never be used is actually a foundation for the entire legislation. So it absolutely cannot be taken out. But they will still claim it'll never be used. And often claim both things in the same sentence. This complete logical disconnect is when you can tell how a new law is really going to be used. So the important thing here isn't that the UK is in the spotlight again, but that this pattern needs to trigger recognition in liberty-conscious citizens of a false sell, of a bait and switch. With this particular law, liberties activists like Open Rights Group have warned that it'll also be used against whistleblowers in terms of damage national security. And to be fully honest, that's not inconceivable either. Next up, finance. Innovation continues on the blockchain. A concept was presented this week that has the concept to take blockchain technology from backing one coin at a time to backing any and all assets all the time, which would have the potential to disrupt the entire financial system in a very positive way. A white paper was published on so-called Sidechains, which will enable not just cryptocurrency assets, but all assets to be backed by the Bitcoin blockchain in the future. This immediately solves the problem of the many blockchains. When there's one, the Bitcoin blockchain, which has enormous computing power behind it today, the combined computer that is made up by the Bitcoin maintenance network is more powerful than a supercomputer. More powerful than all the top 500 supercomputers, actually, combined. by 4 orders of magnitude. With the concept of sidechains, any new innovation can have this immense computer power backing it, making future invasions immune to takeover attacks, and promoting the ever-important garage startup concept even in the cryptocurrency and blockchain sphere. That said, the white paper is intriguing and promising, but a lot of work remains if sidechains are to become reality, as they require modification to the rules of the blockchain, a so-called hard fork. Therefore, it's going to take years before sidechains become reality, if ever, but the technology as such is nevertheless extremely promising. And as a final note for today, we can observe from the United States what happens when the police gets militarized and forgets its purpose. Early this Tuesday morning, there was a tragedy in Roy, Utah, where Jose Calzada called the Suicide Prevention Hotline. Heavily armed SWAT police promptly arrived at his house and shot and killed him. While I'm sure they'll defend their actions by saying they technically did prevent a suicide, this is a tragic and horrifying example of what happens when the police is allowed to forget that their purpose is to serve the public. Commander Adama of Battlestar Galactica had a good thing to say to this effect.
There's a reason why you separate military and the police. One fights the enemy of the state. The other serves and protects the people. When the military becomes both, then the enemies of the state tend to become the people.
That's exactly what is happening, except it's the police that's becoming both in the United States, and the effects are horribly tragic. Police murdering innocent civilians is now so common that names of victims are turning into numbers and statistics. I'm Rick Falkvinge, and this is Liberties Report. Visit our sponsor, Private Internet Access. Good night.
This report is presented by Private Internet Access.
Liberties Report is produced using exclusively free software.